Welcome back. So glad you didn't cower from the challenge of the first piece of advice. Now, this one might sting a bit, so be ready. Here's number 2. Know that it now is all on you. No one owes you anything. You are responsible now for everything. You see, in your youth, everyone took care of you. Your parents paid your mortgage, filled your refrigerator with food, your closets full of clothes. They funded your vacations, maybe even paid for that education that you now know is obsolete. You didn't earn any of it. It just happened out of their obligation to you, or as payment for that drunken tequila night that they spent 9 months before you arrived here. Whatever. But you see, since that is the only reality that you've known, it's easy to get faked out and think that life like that is gonna continue. That everyone, the rest of your life, is going to do the same for you. But now, it's the opposite. Instead of people being obligated to you and taking care of you, you are now obligated to everybody else and have the responsibility to take care of them. You are obligated to your employer. Deliver or you're fired. If you're an entrepreneur, you are obligated to your clients. Deliver or you are fired. You are now obligated to your government. You go from being a dependent to being a taxpayer. Pay or you are fined and then sent to jail. None of them owe you anything, and you owe them everything. Oh, and they will be reminding you of this often too, by the way, so get ready. This is a critical understanding of the transition that you are making. As Carl Jung would tell you, you are transitioning from childhood into the youth phase. You see, when we are children, we have no problems. That's why children, regardless of how poor their surroundings, are still playful and joyful. They are conscious-free. In childhood, we are innocent and naive. Everything is fantastical and seemingly possible. You can become an astronaut, an NBA star, a superhero. As children, we are completely dependent upon our parents. We are not completely born yet. We are still enclosed in a psychic atmosphere of our parents or those responsible for taking care of us. Then the youth phase begins, the process of becoming fully conscious. This phase begins about puberty and then goes to the age of 35 to 40, typically, sometimes much later. This phase is when the demands of life put a harsh ending on those childhood dreams. And all those things that you're supposed to do now start being realized. But a lot of people, they try to cling to their childhood level of consciousness and rebel against forces of the world, to do nothing but indulge in their craving for pleasure or self-esteem. They have exaggerated expectations, an underestimation of the difficulties, and an unjustified optimism. Those who rebel against the transition want to remain unconscious, or at most, conscious only of the desires of the ego. And unfortunately, our current culture only indulges this further. Well-meaning parents have become overly coddling, keeping their children, regardless of their age, in the dependent state of childhood consciousness. And social media amplifies the self-indulgent narcissism of the ego. Parents think they are helping, and you think you're just doing what everybody else is doing, but it is handicapping you. It's hindering your growth. It's blocking your transition, and it's stunting the maturation process of your human development. Grow up, and I mean that lovingly and in the support of your personal growth and the advancement of your heroic journey. Leave the nest. If your parents won't kick you out, leave. Stop relying on them for help and support. Figure it out on your own. Do it yourself, and then invite them over to bask in the success of your own making. And then limit the time that you suckle your narcissistic ego on social media. It is hindering you in so many ways that you might not be fully conscious of. All right, I told you might not like number 2. Often the advice we need to hear the most is the advice we want to hear the least. And it's up to you whether you hear it and heed it. Some will, and they will be greatly benefited by it. But I know most won't. That's why only the few in a circle of people, regardless of their childhood background, intelligence, or talent, rise to the top. While everybody else, well, they just retweet everybody else's quotes and reads about their adventures on their newsfeed. Join me back here tomorrow if you dare, and if you deem yourself part of those few, and I will give you advice on how to really find your passion and then do what you love. Does that sound good? Okay, we'll see. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. Oh, and if you want to be helpful to your friends and you want to look smart, pass them this message. Know that these messages expire in 72 hours, so do it now.